gray matters. If I can only get the mouse working the way I want. You see, this is a question that we started with. Does technology actually help accessibility? And the term accessibility we came to because we thought about moving from disability as the stigma of the individual person to accessibility as a property of any well-designed system that it should have. So the challenge was that we had is to move from view. You see, I'm a man, I can do only one thing at a time, and I can't see well enough, so okay. Anyway, this is just the background, shows you that we've put some work into a structure. The challenge was, does advancing technology actually hinder or accelerate accessibility? Now, we've just done a couple of case studies, and unless technology is used properly and wisely in good design, it is actually generating more inaccessibility, and it is marginalizing more of the population. The demographics show that we have an aging population. The acceleration of technology-driven services that do not consider the aging population is alarming. So we looked at what do we need to do in order to address issues like that. So rather than dealing with it on a sort of substitute level at a later stage, we want to be sure that the systems are built in the right way right from the beginning. And we're talking about technological, business, and societal systems. The concepts apply to all. What we need is a reference model, and how that will actually bring benefit, Boris will talk about in a minute. But the reference model has as an audience the designers in research, the design researchers, and the designers, and also the decision makers in industry. And the reference model, in essence, you don't really have to know the detail. You can wait until the printed copy appears in a couple of months' time. Hopefully, is a condensation of gathered good practice from the research arena, and also from successfully carried out projects in industry. So structures like, what are the principles that apply to making systems accessible? What processes would you follow? What steps would you have in the process? Care to be taken about identifying the stakeholders that interact with the system or are being affected by the system carefully, so that you don't exclude and you involve all of those who will suffer the consequences of what you're building. Then in the decision-making, moving forward to implementation, giving design briefs, making sure that all of these stakeholders also get involved appropriately. So these will be practices, and how to translate that into reality that will be part of the reference model. So how to conduct a stakeholder analysis. There might be methods given so that somebody can readily pick and doesn't have to do research on the basis of that. So lots of practice advice, what to do with whom, when, and what step has to come before the other. So that's, if you like, the right branch here, the contents branch. We've discussed a lot of elements that need to be contained in this reference model, but we also discussed how do we ensure that this reference model actually gets built and acceptable and is maintained over a long period of time, gets growing. Not just a book, but really a living sort of best practice record that continues. And for that, we discussed various mechanisms of making it a community effort in the line of open innovation or open source, together with an appropriate ownership structure, maybe through a foundation where the intellectual property would be protected, widely accessible, but protected in a way so that the direction would be maintained. And of course, businesses could be built on top of that. And with that, we're coming to the impact that this reference model would have, and Boris will say something about that.
Thanks. So we have some small presentation notes. Was it this one? Yes. There we go. Now, the question is, does technology help or hinder accessibility? Because designing for ability should not be designing for disability as of today. We would like to take it one step further. And basically what we have arrived at is a kind of manifesto. So the manifesto that you can see here basically consolidates in a kind of small picture. And we would like you to take this picture as a kind of takeaway. Because we believe that there's three things coming together. There's an individual, which means if we address the needs of these individuals, we do something that is quite desirable. And if we use now technology, which is the second field here, we need to find out whether what we try to do is already available. We can talk about technology that still needs to be invented completely. If we have just one step left, that may be an option. So we talk about feasibility here. So if we combine those two, what we actually address is a need for interaction. As of today, we already start to see that technology and the individual do not really resonate. The needs of interaction are partially fulfilled, sometimes in a horrible fashion, sometimes they're already solved quite well. Now the third bubble needs to come in. And the third bubble is the sum of the individuals, because society on one hand may be seen as a sum of individuals, but at the end of the day, it's even more than that. So what we want to create is an economic value. To make sure that we address this right, we need to talk about those two fields that are overlapping here. If we, for instance, say that we have a technology that creates an economic value, we are actually addressing a kind of infrastructure need. So this is something that does something good to society. Because, for instance, it helps to reduce burden from a financial perspective that as of today would be paid for by the taxes. Now the idea is to not only address the third bubble in here, which is the overlap between the individual and the economic thing, which would simply represent the need for doing something that fits the social cultural perspective. But actually rather to go straight into the sweet spot in the middle. And the sweet spot in the middle that we see here is the one where we're aiming at. Because if we address this sweet spot, we are going to address the experience of accessibility in a way that is desirable by the individual, with a technology that is already feasible and available in the market, and in the way we do to create economic value, we are reducing financial burden. So we are going to install some infrastructure by the way we change interaction to fit social cultural needs on a long-term scaling perspective. increasing the experience. Thank you.
Fantastic.